features of the red granite pillar include the fact that it is of Phoenician or Hebrew design and is 3,000 years old. It was placed here for a reason, to mark the location of the crossing of the Red Sea on dry ground. This pillar is even mentioned in the Bible, a pillar to the Lord at Egypt's border. At the south end of the beach is where we can see the pillar. A matching column on the other side of the Gulf in Saudi Arabia was found by Ron Wyatt in 1984 and was shown to Saudi authorities. On the Saudi pillar were Hebrew inscriptions which included the words Pharaoh, Mizraim or Egypt, Moses, death, water, Yahweh, Solomon, and Edom. The inscriptions on this column have been removed, since the Egyptians living here were not excited about a Hebrew celebration marker, located in their own backyard. For centuries, this beach has been named for the crossing of the Red Sea at this exact spot. On Google Earth, we can see the name Nuweiba at this point on the beach. This older, detailed map reveals to us the complete name of the beach. Nuweiba is short for Nuweiba al-Muzayina. The name on this beach, Nuweiba al-Muzayina, gives us confirmation that we are in the correct location. The translation of that name means waters of Moses opening. This is where the waters opened by the hand of God. Investigations have revealed artifacts which confirm our previous conclusions about the site. The seafloor is smooth and contains gradual contours. Our first artifact to inspect is this chariot wheel that still has 3 of its 4 spokes, plus the hub is extending upward. We see 90-degree angles here, which are a sign of man-made structure. The Lord looked down upon the army of the Egyptians, and he took off their chariot wheels. The chariot wheel with 6 spokes was the most widely used by the Egyptians. Egyptian chariots were known to use metal hubs in the center of the wheels. Using metal detectors, divers have found metal in the raised hubs that are now covered in coral. Here we see another 4-spoked chariot wheel with 1 spoke missing and a center raised hub. The coral here has preserved the chariot parts by retaining the man-made structure, even after the wood has disappeared. Here we see another wheel suspended on its axle, standing at attention. It has 6 spokes and a raised center hub. Ron Wyatt made many dives here and located many artifacts. This could have once been a chariot cab. This appears to be another round chariot wheel. Horse remains have also been found here, such as this shrunken hoof. Horses are not in the Sinai Peninsula today. Human remains have also been found, such as this coral-covered femur bone on the right. Lab tests confirmed that it is in fact bone. Other bones have also been found. A cross-section reveals the bone inside the coral. Here we see a chariot wheel standing on its axle in this old 1978 footage shot by Ron Wyatt. Next we see an 8-spoke wheel with 1 spoke missing. 8-spoke wheels were only used during the 18th dynasty, the time of the Exodus. The premier find here at the crossing site is this gold veneer that was left behind from a 4-spoke chariot wheel. The Bible tells us there were 600 choice chariots used in the chase of the children of Israel. This artifact was left behind at a depth of 200 feet. Since specialized equipment would be necessary to raise it to the surface, today it is still in the location where it was found. Since there are chariot parts on this side of the Red Sea crossing, Could there be other chariot parts on the other side of the Gulf, showing a continuation of artifacts? On the shore opposite of Nuweiba, inspection of the seafloor in Saudi Arabia has also been conducted to see if chariot parts can be found on this side of the Red Sea crossing. While investigating the Saudi Arabian waters, Viveka Pontian found this beautiful round chariot wheel specimen with a raised center hub. This is confirmation of the chariot parts continuing to the other side of the crossing site, opposite Nuweiba. By confirming the location of the Red Sea crossing, one is then able to conclude without a doubt that the real Mount Sinai must be over in Saudi Arabia, in Midian, just as the Bible says.
The boat-shaped site was first found and photographed by a Turkish army captain back in 1959. It was quickly explored and dismissed as a freak of nature. But Wyatt, an amateur archaeologist, rekindled interest in it a few years ago. He brought in Dave Fasold, a marine salvage expert, to assess it. The Doomsday Mountain team brought in some high technology to explore the oldest legend of man. They began scanning their site with a molecular frequency generator. It's a device used by surgeons to pinpoint cancer tumors, and it's been used by Fasold to locate underwater treasure. This time, the molecular frequency generator began to pick up a unique pattern of iron lines beneath the earth.
Okay, bring that one up.
They began placing ribbons along those lines. The finished shape, outlined by the ribbons, was that of a huge ship, the approximate length and width of Noah's Ark, as described in the Bible. The fascinating field of ribbons soon attracted higher academic interest.
That looks like iron. Okay.
Dr. John Baumgartner, a physicist with Los Alamos Laboratories, sent samples back to the lab for analysis and confirmed that the metal they were tracing with the ribbons was indeed iron. With the width and the length known, the only remaining question was depth. By locating the depth of the hull, they could determine if the boat-shaped object had the cargo capacity described in the biblical ark. To resolve this final issue, Wyatt and Fasold brought geologist Tom Finner to Turkey with his company's heavy-duty subsurface radar equipment. Gear like this located the black box cockpit recorder on the floor of the frozen Potomac River after the Air Florida crash. It was here, several miles short of the boat-shaped site, that a waiting game began for Finner and the others. The party needed a final go-ahead from the Turkish government to complete their probe of Doomsday Mountain. The restrictions of martial law left the American explorers isolated from the outside world. Not even a telephone.
Yeah. Anyway, we're going to hang in like smell on a skunk till there's nothing left to get this done.
Hang in like the smell on a skunk. The Turkish government stopped the exploration. What now?
Since we were there, Barbara, things have cooled down, and they've sent their own team of scientists in to take a look at this site. It's a very fascinating location.
While Turkish scientists and archaeologists did their own research, Ron and his associates continued their work. The next step was subsurface interface radar.
There's the longitudinal bulkhead. You ought to see them popping out, man.
Yeah, there they are.
There's another one. There's the keel line right there.
Yeah.
All right, the lines are there. The lines are there.
Okay, we're going to walk over.
Yeah, walk.
Take a look.
Leave it running so everybody knows that we're not cheating here, right?
You got it, Toby.
Okay. Now, this is the west bulkhead. Okay, can you look through there and...
All right.
This is the west bulkhead.
All right.
That was over there. And he walked easterly. Here we start getting the longitudinal bulkheads. Here, 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 here.
Okay.
Here. You see there how it shows up?
Right.
The initial scans were very impressive, showing internal structure consistent with bulkheads and rooms. But to be sure they were interpreting the data correctly, Ron took the scan printouts to Geophysical Survey Systems, the developer and manufacturer of the radar.
This data does not represent natural geology. It's a man-made structure. These reflections are occurring very periodic, too periodic to be random natural type interface.
There was no longer any doubt that this was the remains of something man-made. In late 1986, the Turks announced their decision. The ceremony was set for June 1987. During that ceremony, the governor asked Ron to demonstrate the radar on site for the journalists and military officials. When Ron showed them a readout that he said looked like an intact timber, the governor then instructed a soldier to dig right there. What emerged was this petrified section of fossilized hand-wrought timber. Sectioning showed it to be laminated wood, 5 layers of timber glued together with pitch, clearly visible oozing from the end. This fossilized specimen shows that rivets were used in its construction. Their analysis showed that they contained iron, titanium, and aluminum, among other things, very sophisticated alloys that would be resistant to water. Specimens falling out from the lower end of the ship, identified as slag by an expert in metallurgy, indicated to Ron that Noah filled the hull with slag material from his metal production of the fittings used to build the ark. More complete radar scans revealed a ship, although damaged and collapsed in places, of very intelligent, modern design with a ramp system at the door which led to each level.
Psalm 22 prophesies about the crucifixion of the Messiah. It was written by King David around 1,000 years before Christ. This was 500 years before crucifixion would even be used or invented by the Roman Empire. And Yeshua, the Messiah, Son of the Most High, was crucified 1,000 years after these prophecies were written. Psalm 22:12 tells us, "Many bulls have compassed me. Strong bulls of Bashan have beset me round." If you're familiar with the crucifixion, you know that King Herod played a part in the death and crucifixion of the Messiah. But many do not know that Bashan is the exact place that he was ruler of at this time.
Omnis qui veritatem audiunt, vocem meam audiunt. Veritas. Quid est veritas?
As you can see, these prophecies were coming from the Messiah through King David as he wrote them down. And Psalm chapter 22 verse 6 is another significant verse when it says, "But I am a worm, and no man, a reproach of men, and despised of the people." This particular verse does not sound significant at all. It actually sounds quite strange until you look into it and find out that usually in the Bible the Hebrew word for a worm is rima, which means a maggot. But the Hebrew word Jesus used here for the worm is tolah, which means crimson worm or scarlet worm. This particular worm is different than most, and when it reproduces and gives new life to its offspring, it does something quite special. The first thing it does is it adheres to a tree or a branch. They then form a protective shell that will protect the offspring. When the larvae hatch, they stay under the shell. Not only does the mother's body provide protection, but it also provides food, as they literally feed on the living body of their mother. This is her final sacrifice, as she knew that giving birth to these young would cost her her life. After just a few days, when the young worms grow to the point that they are able to take care of themselves, the mother dies. As she dies, she oozes a crimson or scarlet red dye, which not only stains the wood she is attached to, but also her young children. They are colored scarlet red for the rest of their lives.
Kabilule, wa okulu, tenau kishmi, til komihiv.
At the Hebrew University in Jerusalem undertake the painstaking work of piecing together bits of ancient biblical scrolls found in a mountain cave near the Dead Sea. This parchment document...
It was a simple Bedouin boy who stumbled across what has been called the most important archaeological find of the 20th century. The academic controversies of the early 90s obscured the real mystery of the scrolls, of who wrote them and why they were hidden deep in caves along the Dead Sea. What is clear is that the scrolls were carefully hidden in sealed jars. Were they hidden in a panic to be recovered after some danger had passed? Or were they placed there over a period of time for the benefit of future generations? Clues to this mystery are hidden in fragments of the past that scholars and scientists have labored over for half a century.
The Dead Sea Scrolls have been discovered in 11 caves. Those caves are geologically of two kinds. 5 of the caves are in the cliffs, in the very hard limestone, in the Dolomites, and they are, of course, natural caves. The other 6 caves are artificial caves which have been dug in the soft marl. The artificial caves are the best solution to survive in this very, very harsh climate. And it is very easy to dig. You see, this is the mud. It crumbles in your hands. So it doesn't require very hard labor. On the floor, we found hundreds of potsherds, which testified that the place was occupied.
The Dead Sea Scrolls is an expansive collection of over 800 manuscripts. 50 years of unparalleled scholarship has opened this ancient library to the modern world. Piecing thousands of fragments together, early research would soon present evidence of a desert community. The 800 manuscripts left by the community comprise 3 distinct groups of literature. The first group contains the entire Hebrew Bible, save the book of Esther. These are the oldest copies of Old Testament texts by 1,000 years. Though lost in the aftermath of the Roman military campaign, the voices of Qumran can once again be heard because of the painstaking work of dozens of scientists and scholars around the world. But for every question answered, many others are being asked. And perhaps many answers still lie hidden in the desert. In many ways, the real work on the Dead Sea Scrolls is just beginning.